Welcome to the last session of the Naked Truth. I forget now how many episodes this is. I think it's the 12th, but anyhow, welcome Alison O'Reilly. Can I start off by congratulating you with the BAFTA? I'm going to show the people now how a BAFTA looks like. That's how a BAFTA looks like. So well done on that. So I'm delighted for you.
It's a team effort, you know, like it's very much a team effort and a project that took a few years.
Yeah.
Without the survivors, we can't tell these stories. So,
it's still nice to be appreciated, still to get something for the hard work. And I mean, that's what you've done. You put the hard work in there yourself and Catherine Corwell, and that's what we're going to talk about, the whole Tuam mother and baby home from one by the Sisters of the Bon Secours. Now, I was reading about it, and I realized how little I knew about it. I only thought I heard about the whole the bodies, the remains were found, and I thought were just a few babies. I knew there were a couple of hundreds, but I thought it was just unborn babies or whatever. I didn't realize they were from 35th week of fetus to 2 to 3 years old. I mean, these are fully grown children.
Older, some that's older even, you know.
Yeah. So
they're just the ones that they tested, you know, in the laboratories, you know, to get an age category. So
yeah,
they go to 9, you know.
That's just amazing. I didn't realize, but I didn't realize either that actually the first finding was done in 1975 by 2 boys. Yeah, and I found it a bit distasteful then that a priest actually said prayer, a blessing to reseal the whole well again. And I'm pretty sure the Catholic. I don't want to bash the Catholic Church about this, because this could have been any religious order, but I'm pretty sure they would have known about this, because the Sister Bon Secours, clearly they were under the auspices of Catholic Church. But yeah, if you just want to kind of talk us through how you actually got involved. It was about 2014 you got hold of the story, yeah?
Yeah, I was writing about the Bethany home babies, which is the Protestant children home in Dublin, and obviously they were all around the country. But the Bethany babies had died in really appalling circumstances. A lot of malnutrition there. And the difference, I suppose, with the Bethany babies was that they were buried in Mount Jerome Cemetery, and they just were in an unmarked grave, which I'm not saying just wasn't an unmarked grave, but it's you know, Irish people are very proud of their graves. Yeah. So it was quite shocking to learn that there was 222 Bethany babies kind of in this grave that nobody knew about. There was no marking or no celebration, nothing. They might as well have not have existed. And they were uncovered by Dr. Niall Meehan, a professor, and he had done a remarkable amount of work locating these children, identifying them, and also, you know, the causes of death. The records were there. He spent a long time trying to get them. And so it was a very big deal. It was a very important story. And we went along to the unveiling of a huge plaque for them in Mount Jerome Cemetery. And I had spoken to Grace Jackson, who's a survivor from the Bethany homes, who's still piecing her life together, but has advanced a lot now in those last few years. And so I had that story for a while, and I was trying to get it into the mail, and, you know, it went from a spread down to like 300 words or something. And I was just very lucky that, I suppose any journalist would know, the longer you have a story, you can kind of get diluted or minimized a bit. And I was a bit disappointed about that, but it caught the eye of Anna Corrigan, who was a grandmother living in West Dublin. And she was researching the story of her mother, Bridget Dolan, and she had only discovered a year previously that her mother had 2 secret baby boys in the Tuam Mother and Baby Home. Now, at the time, we didn't even know Tuam Mother and Baby Home existed, you know. I mean, it'd be there in the books, all right, but it wasn't nowhere near how infamous it is now, and which is an awful pity that it's always in the latter part of life that, you know, these things emerge. But she emailed me in work and just said, I read your article about the Bethany babies, and I wanted to let you know about my 2 brothers who were born in the Tuam Mother and Baby Home, where there's a mass grave of 800 babies in a septic tank. And I just was reading the email, and I mean, as a journalist, you know, you get all sorts of stories all the
Yeah.
time. You know, I've seen the Pope kill somebody, and you know, and I have the evidence, and you know, all this, and
Alba's
you know,
still alive.
all that stuff. And but I suppose the difference with Anna was she had a very well written email, and you do look at things, you know, like that, and
especially that you had dealt with the 200 babies, so it would have been completely unbelievable that this could have happened, I suppose, yeah.
And not only that, my sister had been living in Tuam for more than 10 years.
Okay.
So I knew Tuam very well. And I thought, well, she works in the swimming pool. Like, she'd have heard this. My sister would have heard that story. And so I rang her, and she'd never heard of it. And Anna didn't leave her phone number, because I would just lift the phone and ring immediately. But she did leave her home address. So I felt a bit safe knowing that, okay, if I don't hear from this woman again, because I replied to her email and said, I'd love to speak to you. I thought, well, I'm going to call to her house, just because of the nature. I mean, it's shocking information, a well-written email, a home address, and she's 2 brothers. There's a lot there to take in, a lot. Yeah. And, but I was kind of scratching my head thinking, a mass grave, oh, come on, seriously? You know, I'd know about this. We would all know about this.
Well, it wasn't even a grave, though. It was like a septic tank. That's what makes it so.
It's a burial site, yeah. And we've gotten into the habit of saying grave, but it's just it's where they're buried. It's not even it's not consecrated ground. It's not in the graves historical ledgers. It's not consecrated. It's not referenced anywhere.
Yeah.
And so she did email me back. And she invited me to her house, and she gave me her number. So I got to speak to her, and I knew straight away on the phone. She was like, now I'm going to speak to you off the record, and I'll give you all my stuff, but I've got a contract here where you're not going to mention my name, and you're going to sign it, and you're not going to do this, and you're not going to do that. Okay, fair enough. Like, she's really thought about this, and not just that, she's wary of journalists. So she was, you know, on the attack straight away. But I called to her house, and I don't know, like, you know, I suppose it's not just with journalism, it's with getting a sense of something, a story. Yeah. And I just walked into her kitchen, and a big long table, which is still there, and everything was laid out perfectly in those plastic packets and folders, and birth certificates, death certificates, mum's history, you know, archaeological papers, everything. And every email she sent. So she had already done the work I needed, such as freedom of information, birth certs, death certs, ledgers. She had gotten stuff under the AIR project. She'd done it all. And she was a civil servant, so she was highly organised in that sense and knew her way around the system. And she told me that a woman called Catherine Corliss had uncovered the names of 796 babies in Galway, and that she would talk to me. So here I have, so when you're looking for a big story like that, you want who's personally affected. And I do that every day on radio. If I've got a feature for news, I think, okay, I'm doing a story on COVID. What's the line today? Okay, it's about mask wearing, because this is an ongoing story. So we focus on mask wearing, but I need somebody who had COVID or was affected by COVID, or somebody, you know. So you've done the big subject, but you want the personal story. And that's what the nature of news, the big story, the personal aspect. And Anna had given me the big story and the personal aspect. So she had her whole mother's story. I was allowed to tell her mother's story. I was allowed to use a photograph of her mother. I was allowed to print all of this. And then I need the overall. Did you write?
You wrote a book about her mother as well, didn't you?
I went on to write a book about Bridget Dawn.
I just want to share might as well give it a bit of a plug now, anyhow. So.
Thank you.
And we'll see now. I think it's My Name is.
That's it. But that's Bridget Dolan, and that's Anna in her arms. Yeah. And it just made sense to go on and write that book years later, because I had written so much about it, you know. Yeah. And I also had Anna telling me the story. So what happened then was I spoke to Catherine Corliss on the phone. She had explained roughly, you know, 796 babies. They were unaccounted for. They're not anywhere. They're not referenced in burial records. They're not referenced in anywhere, only the births, deaths, and marriages. And Catherine had, you know, asked somebody in the births, deaths and marriages who took an interest in it to compile this list for her. And Anne Glennon in Galway Register did this. And so I have Catherine on board, I have Anna on board, I have access to their research, but like, it doesn't end there. You know, you need time then to check everything that they're saying. Because for all I know, they could be conspiring together with some crazy story and none of it's real. So obviously I had to go into the register. I had to check everything. I had to do rights of reply. So I think I worked on that story for about 5 or 6 weeks, and I had a really good news editor, Aidan Corkery, who gave me that time and space and was checking in with me. So you're working with other stories as well, but you're building on this. And he'd say, well, any news on that story? Where are you at? And I'd give him, you know, I probably need a few more days. I don't think it, and he'd say, is it ready for next week? No, it's not. TUSLA had just set up as well. They were only established in 2014. So I went to them and told them about the death records and all of these babies in an unmarked grave. And they came back and said, we don't know what you're talking about. No clue. I went to Bon Secours, and Mary Ryan said, don't know what you're talking about. Can't help you. Everyone's dead. The usual line.
Yeah.
And, you know, it brings you back to then, you know, obviously the 2 boys that had stumbled on the grave as children in the 70s. Yet again, you know, typical Ireland, mass grave full of bones. Well, we just fill it in, wreck all the DNA and the remains, and we throw a bit of holy water on it, and sure, look,
that's it.
Like, yeah, nothing to see here.
Nothing happened. Nothing to see here.
and lay there for all those decades, you know. And then obviously people knew there was a grave there, and the Dublin Road housing estate was built, and it went from a small family in the Dublin Road housing estate who tended to that grave for years. So the grave was known, and that's all we had. That's all Catherine had. And Catherine, in the meantime, is studying genealogy and ancestry and history, and she's, you know, asked to write a paper about something in your area, and always look under your own nose in your own area. Same as journalism, you know, what can I make a story out of? Well, there's something in that water, or that bottle is, you know, whatever. Yeah. There's always a story. There's always something. And she wrote about the children's home. She didn't know about the grave, but then she started asking about the grave. And then she was like, well, who are these children? And how many's in there? And how do we know there's even children in there? Like, who, you've been told there's a grave there, but what's the story? And that's when she spoke to the 2 lads, and she got a sense of, you know, there might be something bigger here. And then she went looking in, you know, the local council, the records, the archives, couldn't find anything on the babies. And Anne Glennon then pulled all of the names. And Anne Glennon had a job in her hand, because what you're looking for is place of death, right? So, you know, place of death is the Lourdes Hospital, or, you know, Kilkenny Hospital. So what she has to do, but what Anne Glennon had to do then was to look for the Tuam mother and baby home. It was also known as St. Mary's home, and it was also known as the Dublin Road home. And, you know, so she was able to compile accurately, and we know it was accurate because then the Department of Social Protection released these records in the aftermath through Joan Burton, who was an adoptee herself, and she was the minister at the time. She ordered that these names be released publicly, and they were totally in line with what Anne Glennon had done. So Anne was spot on, you know, because, you know, in a circumstance like that, you could miss a name. Yeah. There were 798 babies, and Catherine discovered that 2 of them had been reinterred with their own family, and or in another, you know, consecrated ground. So together with myself and Catherine and Anna, we released on the 24th or 25th of May the 800 babies in a mass grave. And, you know, for 2 women who'd no real experience of the media, it made the front page of a national newspaper, and they were delighted. Yeah. I wasn't, because I thought, nobody's picking it up. It's not happening. You know, even my colleagues aren't picking it up. Jonathan Healy did a bit of it on News Talk. Philip Boucher-Hayes brought Catherine on to Liveline and gave her a lot of airtime. And at that time, they were raising money for plaques for the baby. I don't think we realised the extent of this. So it was kind of like, let's remember them. But Anna was like, no, let's find them. And I'm not having no plaques up over a septic tank, you know. And I I remember saying to Catherine, we need to phone the police. You need to phone the police about this. And she was saying, oh God, well, you know, she's so modest, Catherine. Now, she's a very strong person, but she's also, you know, she's not controversial, you know. And
No.
But the subject was controversial.
Yeah.
And
but that what makes it so powerful as well, because she is not a controversial. She's kind of stand backish in a way as well. She's not confrontational either. So that what makes it so powerful. That
No, she's just the whole time trying to get to the truth, you know.
Yeah.
And so about 6 weeks, no, sorry, a week later, the Mail Online emailed me and said, did you do a story on a mass grave in Galway? And I said, I did. And they asked for the PDFs. I gave them the PDFs. They had it up online within an hour. And that's when everything changed. That's when everything changed. I mean, we didn't sleep for the next 6 weeks. We were just fielding calls from everywhere. And we were in the Washington Post, New York Times, CBS, CNN, you name it. Every single national, international, global network we were on. And it just exploded to the point where the government couldn't ignore it. And the Taoiseach at the time, Enda Kenny, was doing a tour of America. He was being asked about this. So they had to, you know, shut it down. And how do you shut anything down? We'll set up a commission of inquiry. We have an inquiry. So the inquiry was established, and look, it didn't go far enough, and it cost millions, and it's been slammed as a whitewash, and it was delayed by 2 years. And some people are happy that it's over and something was done, but it wasn't enough. It was a whitewash. When I heard the Minister for Children, Roderick O'Gorman, saying this was a societal problem, I thought, oh, I'm leaving. What's the point? What is the point? We're waiting 5 years for this.
Yeah.
And so it was a very important historical piece of work. Lots of facts and findings, lots of history behind the homes and reasons, but nothing shocking. 9,000 babies was the most shocking thing that we know of have been buried in mother and baby homes or on the grounds of them. But I think with Tuam was different because this was a septic tank. And by exposing Tuam, it was the right home to expose, because it was a septic tank, and that brought us into the whole thing. And I suppose we've never let go of it. We've branched out in every avenue we can go down, between art and music, journalism, podcasts, documentaries, books, talks, conferences, you name it. We've done everything we can to get the word out there.
I mean, but that it proves, because I've seen the documentary as well, and it was well done. I mean, and the BAFTA was well deserved. I mean, it's 798 or 800 children. I mean, that's like a small village kind of disappeared into a septic tank, and that's what gets to me. Like, you know, it's just the carelessness and of the government. Oh yeah, we'll see what we can do about it. Nothing. Try not to do too much, be seen to be doing something, but actually not really do anything really. And that's what kind of, it's a bit disturbing. That's the most disturbing of this whole thing. So what was the immediate impact on you, on yourself, dealing with all this kind of information? That must have been kind of harrowing to see some of the evidence as well. So I suppose, so did it have any impact on you personally as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've always tried to write about children's rights, and I've been writing about illegal adoptions, and I would have fostered children myself. And so I do think that the children in the care of the state today, tomorrow, you know, previously, they are voiceless and faceless, nameless. And they're hidden in a very broken system that, you know, back then, there was a code of silence enforced by the church, you know, peer pressure and frightening people, and, you know, you didn't go up against the church. There's a different type of silence today, where it's a legal silence, you know, called the in-camera rule. So it's sophisticated law, where it's noble in theory, where you don't identify a child in the care of the state. Sounds right, sounds about right. Yeah. However, when you do something like that, then you hide everything.
Yeah.
Because if I identify a child in my care, by saying the child is in my care, I'm identifying the child, and you can be done for a breach of courts and breach of privacy like that, and it carries a jail sentence. So, I mean, these people were being threatened not with a jail sentence, but it was like a jail sentence back then. So it's a system designed to, well, anything can happen in it. Abuse, a lot of people, manipulation, control, bad things happen in a system like that, and people get away with it. And so we saw that when the expose came out. Well, we set up an inquiry that we control, but we'll say it's independent, because it's definitely independent, but we're paying them. So how independent is it? And when you look at how we've managed this, and we've dragged it out, and those babies still remain in a septic tank in Galway as we are speaking now, 8 years on from that expose. But look what happened with the babies in Canada. Immediately their president said, gives them the files. Children were brought back to their tribes. They were given incredible. I don't know if anybody has seen the Sioux babies being laid to rest, but I have never seen anything like, this ceremony that they got when they were bringing them. I mean, they stopped off in at every tribe on the way back from, them being recovered, and it was incredible to watch. But here we are still waiting. And
8 years later.
And so for me, I have a picture in my head because I'm a visual person. I probably shouldn't be a writer at all. I can tell stories in pictures better, I feel. I just can see things better. I've always had a picture in my head of just hundreds of little faces. You can't even see them. It's just like little heads. And every time I think of the two babies, I see hundreds of little heads all squashed together. Because I believe they're all together. And it's not one child, it's a whole group of children. And it's all these little heads and little faces that they've been forgotten. And I always think of when they were dying. It's the part where they were hanging between life and death. Where were they? Were they on their own? Who was holding them? Did they get the last rites? Did they even get a song or a cuddle or a kiss? Were they wrapped in a blanket? It's always that I think of.
Well, given the fact they end up in a septic tank, I don't think any of that would have happened. I think they were just discarded as if they were.
That's the bit that really cuts me to the bone. Even now when I'm speaking to you, it never leaves me that bit. The last few seconds of their life, who was with them? When you really, really need someone just for that time, who was with them, and who decided, wrap them up and out they go? Or was it, some nurse saying, well, look, God, the poor unfortunates, sure, they stood no chance at all, and may you rest in peace. Anything. Did they get any sort of words? And then, but then, as you say, if anyone has seen the chambers in which they were buried, you're pulling back this concrete slab, and it's about 2 meters down. The idea that they're wrapped in, in little blankets and gently played, will you stop? No.
I mean, things like that. Because I often wonder. I always have this question: how much value do we put on a human life? And it's very little, really, when you think of it. Just a human life has no value sometimes, and it depends where you're from as well, I suppose. But I mean, but that's so sad, and still. But this actually is okay. You've been dealing with this since it was 2014, but this is going back to the 1960s and even before that. So, as you said, 1975, 2 boys had already discovered that grave. So it's not 8 years. Talk about decades and decades when this has been covered up, really, because I'm pretty sure must have been people around. They would have known. Because there's always rumors, and there's people should have known, but it's just don't keep it quiet. Let's not draw attention to ourselves, kind of attitude. Typical
Irish.
Typical
Irish.
I mean, but
just leave well enough alone.
yeah. Well, I mean, this happens in other places as well, but it's the after care, the after effect of it. As you said, in Canada, they had an similar issue, but they dealt with it. And I was thinking, why doesn't the government do the same thing here and just end it for themselves as well? Like, instead of dragging it on, because this is going to go on, and they be called to account every time as well. Like, just do it once, do it properly, do it good.
Do it properly, go all out.
Exactly. Give those small creatures, give them a bit of dignity, well, what they deserve. And I think that's all we can ask for at this stage, I suppose. But not even that. It's still in the septic tank. I mean, to me, that's just amazing.
That's appalling. It's really appalling. It's not good enough. But, if people say, "Oh, well done, BAFTA," and this, that, and the other, I think, well, the BAFTA, highlights the story, which is all a journalist wants to keep doing, is highlighting the same story in a different way. So an award highlights the story.
Yeah.
But even in international award like a BAFTA nothing has happened. Those babies are still there.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sitting here now telling you this, and I'm going, what actually have we done? Only told the world 1,000,000 times that they're there, and we haven't dug them up ourselves. That's what we haven't done.
Yeah, I have a feeling we could have the same discussion again in 10 years' time.
I agree with you then. I'd like to think that it was all resolved by then, but I don't believe that. And I say that to people now. I say to people, and I mean, the production team for, with the BAFTA, would we do the excavation? I said, what excavation? Like, what excavation are you talking about? Like, good luck with that if you think that's happening anytime soon. I'd like to think, I'd like to believe, and I will campaign for it to happen, but I don't believe anything anyone tells me.
It's such an easy thing to do, really, on a government level. Just dig it up, bury them. I mean, it doesn't have to be even that costly. I mean, to me, it baffles me. Really, it's I have no.
It's not there, and as well as that, like, imagine excavating those grounds then, and then the babies there's 500 there rather than 796 or 300, and then where's the rest of them? And then you're turning into well, is this illegal adoptions? And if so, oh God, now we've got a whole American side of things. So it doesn't end there if they're not there. You're looking for the children then, because I know survivors. They'll say, okay, well, you didn't find them all, so let's go back to the beginning, and let's now trace the steps to wherever they were sent, if they're falsified records or whatever. And then you're into a whole other 20 years of a battle.
Yeah.
And I'd say the government know that.
Yeah.
Just thinking, like, how are they going to explain themselves if the children are not there? It was different in Canada. There was 9 and 10 or 20, and they were all they found them, and they're still going through all of that. But with us, you're 100 babies dumped into a chambers of a septic tank.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's
all commingled remains.
Yeah. And to me,
it's a lot to put together.
And to me, it doesn't matter if it's 800 children, 5 children, 1 child. It's a human being, alive, that's been I mean, just the number is just it's not irrelevant, but I mean, it's just the fact that it's not being dealt with properly, and that's what's the disturbing thing about it.
Very badly, as I said, an inquiry closes things down, but look what the inquiry did. No one was happy with that.
No. But I just see, Zoom is telling me I'm running out of time, so I think about 6 minutes or so, but it's fine. But listen, again, I just want to, I know the BAFTA, I know it's an award, but it is an important award. It is international. I mean, people will see this.
It was the international market and the audience that actually shone a light on a national story. So it was already here. It was out. Nothing really happened. There was a few rumbles here, and there's Twitter, and there was a hashtag 800 babies or 2 babies. And then the international media got it and said, mirrored it back to us. hey guys, even we know this is terrible.
Yeah.
And so we had to sit up and respond to it. And so here we are now getting, a BAFTA, an international award again. And not a single thing written about it here. I think, maybe the Sun wrote something because I was on to them about it. But, you have to wonder what, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe people just think it's the enormity of it. It's too old. Why drag it all up? I don't know.
It is exactly what you said there. It's the hashtag 800 babies. People put that in I've done my bit. I've done the hashtag. And I see that so many times, like, okay, I'll do this hashtag bit and that's it. Like, I've done my bit. So
I said something, it's disgraceful.
Yeah. So
and I was talking to somebody in a cafe yesterday and they said to me, oh yeah, that story, yeah, because they still didn't find those babies, did they? Or did they? And I thought it does leave people and people still don't fully get it. And but to be very clear, there are 9,000 missing children in Ireland that were in the mother and baby homes, and they're only the numbers we know of.
Yeah.
And there's children in a septic tank. And I mean, all of these things like Sean Ross Abbey in Roscrea, people would know that from the Philomena movie, which was Oscar nominated. Like, I have records of 1,021 babies there, or 1,040. There's only about 20 buried on the grounds of Sean Ross. They're not actually there. Where are all they?
Yeah.
That's bigger than any home.
Yeah, I mean, it's frightening when you think of it. How many more will we find out, and maybe not in our lifetime, but you just never know. But the thing is, the whole Philomena story, I think that kind of overshadowed the Tuam story as well, because the movie came out at that time.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people connected those two, even though they weren't really connected. I thought, oh well, we've done the movie.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Yeah. So, but I've been, again, as I said, I'm sure 10 years from now we'll still be talking about this. I hope.
Well, now Liam Neeson is backing a film at the moment that's being made in Ireland on the Tuam babies.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that, like as I said, I don't care if it's a vigil in Cabra or a film made by Liam Neeson. Anything we do, this conversation we're having, puts the focus back on it. People go away and they look it up and they think, oh my God, So that's the job that I have of telling the same story over again in different ways. But you do need the lucky stuff like BAFTA, a film. Those things are big things, and you can reach a bigger market. It's
often the small things though that suddenly trigger things. I mean, I know them myself, of course, stories I've done, and there were big stories written about it, and then I pick up on a small aspect of a story, and then suddenly it becomes kind of viral. So it's often the small things that kind of So, but I mean, I'm going to put this into my blog as well. So then your face will be seen all over the place as well. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But I mean, anything I can do as well to kind of re-highlight this issue again. Like it's just it's important. I mean, I often write about children from the Holocaust, but I often forget things that happen here as well. Like so I kind of have to sometimes come back a small bit as well to look at my real world a small bit as well. I mean, I live in Ireland. I mean, I might not be Irish, but I mean, I'm affected by it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have a daughter. She might have children someday. You don't know what might happen to them. So So that's it.
Children are the most, they're innocent creatures, and in particular, children in the care of the state.
Yeah.
They're so vulnerable. They're just so super vulnerable. And people say, the homeless children are homeless in Ireland. And I always say, I know, and that is appalling and it's terrible. But a lot of the homeless children are with their families, and that's just a little bit extra than what the children in foster care have. They're taken from their families.
Yeah.
And they're totally dependent on strangers. And you just hope that they're in the right hands. And in these cases, these circumstances, these children were not in the right hands.
They weren't, no. I mean, and this is the irony is that Bon Secours translates into good help or good security.
and a multi-million profit company, you know, just a huge organization.
Yeah.
They're nursing nuns.
Yeah.
I
know, but I was reading up on the founder. I forgot her name now, but she came from a very poor background as well. So I mean, for the founder of the Bon Secours Sisterhood, clearly they must have forgotten what their job is.
And it happens.
Yeah.
The power and control. And you said, quite rightly said at the start of the interview, that, you know, it's not about the Catholic Church. It's whoever was caring for these children.
Yeah.
We're not bashing the Catholic Church. We're giving out about the care that these children receive, and it could be anybody. We don't care who was minding them. It just happened to be the nuns. And then when you look at the nuns, they were nursing nuns. They're multimillionaires. You know, they have property all over Ireland, and this happened.
Yeah, I mean, I was recently with Bon Secours Hospital in Limerick, and every time I go there, I have to pay 120 quid. I mean, that's the kind of organization that was looking after these babies.
Yeah. And they did know, Dirk. They did know, because
of course.
My first right of reply from Sister Mary Ryan, the leader of the Bon Secours in Cork, she said, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about." And then suddenly Anna Corrigan produces a letter from Sister Mary Ryan from 2 years previously, because she'd already done the work. And she said, I don't know where your brother John Desmond is buried. He could be in the children's grave at the back of the former home, which is still there. And I said, she did know. And she gives me this whole, I don't know what you're talking about. You did know, because you just told the woman you knew. And that's the disappointing bit.
It was great to talk to you, Alison. And as I said, I'm sure we're going to talk about this again at some stage. I hope not, by the way. I hope it's not needed, but for the time being, thanks for sharing the story again.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Talk to you soon, sir.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.